Hello, I'm Whiskey 60, and this is the Whiskey 60 Overland channel. Today with me we have Bullet, uh, episode 1. We're going to be talking about the capabilities and limitations of the machines. We're going to be talking about navigation. We're going to be talking about how to pack them, where to pack them, so on and so forth. And the basic definition of overlanding. Um, First of all, Bullet to introduce himself. What's up? Give us a little bit about your background, how you got into this, and
Oh, I've been an outdoorsman forever and a day, and I had ATVs as a kid, dirt bikes and so forth, and then technological advances they gave us side by sides. So I got a side by side and loved it so much, and loved camping and everything else that overlanding just became natural.
it was just the next step.
It was just it was an
Right.
evolution.
Right, right. And my background as well. I've been in the outdoors ever since I can remember. Hiking, camping. I was into four-wheel drive, such as Jeeps and Toyota Land Cruisers. And again, when they came out with side-by-sides, I guess I've been into it for what, about 3 years now
Yeah, about.
with
Yeah.
you? Yeah. And we've known each other about 3 years. And
About three, yeah.
that's when I
We
got
met each
started.
other at Indian Creek. It was kind of funny.
Yeah. You want to go into that story? Or?
Oh, we can, yeah. It's just
Okay.
real short and sweet.
All right. So let me start off. So I get a side by side, and I'm going to start overlanding. So
You had an ATV at the time when we met.
no
Yes.
4-wheeler.
Yes, you
I
had your
did have
four-wheeler.
that 4-wheeler.
Yeah.
I did have a 4-wheeler
Yeah.
at the time. And so I had heard about overlanding with ATVs and side by sides. Well, I had an ATV at the time. And I was learning how to load it and what to do and what not to do. Very, very green. So here I am out in the middle of the Ozarks at a very nice campsite that I thought very few people knew about. And I'm there making dinner, and along comes Bullet and some of our other buddies, and they just wheel into camp like they own the place. So as soon as I saw Bullet, I knew exactly who he was because I had seen some of his posts on Facebook and so on and so forth. And then go ahead, you can tell me.
No, it was pretty much it. Pretty much it. So, I was out with a couple of friends, and we decided to go down to Indian Creek, and there was a campsite that I knew. I had camped there for about 2 weeks the year prior, and I was like, "Oh, I got to show you guys this campsite. It's awesome. We can come down here and go camping." So as we started rolling in, I felt really bad because you never really want to crash somebody's campsite. Well, that's kind of exactly what we did, and generally, if you're going to see me out in the woods, I happen to be wearing jeans today. It's like 20 degrees outside. Not that it matters, but generally you're going to see me in a kilt. Well, Whiskey was at the campsite, and I was there with my girlfriend and a couple of friends and their girlfriends and wives. And Whiskey had just seen posts on Facebook. That's all it was.
Mm-hmm.
Was posts on Facebook, and that's on the Ozark Overland or Ozark OHV Trail Riders is the Facebook page. And he had just seen posts and whatnot, saw me on there, didn't really comment or whatever. So anyway, we roll into camp, I get out of the machine, and I'm in a kilt. And the first words out of his mouth were, I apologized, hey, I'm sorry, I didn't know anybody was camping here, I didn't really want to, I don't want to crash your site. I just wanted to show him the campsite. That's all. That's all it was. But I felt really bad about crashing in on you. And I got out of the vehicle, out of the machine, and he goes, "You must be Bullet Bob." And I'm trying to figure out how he knows Bullet, how he knows who I am. And we talked, and while he made dinner, all of us talked, and it was because the kilt, how many people do you run into in the middle of the Ozarks wearing a kilt with a 45, 1911 on one side and a Bowie knife on the other? You know,
Well,
so that's kind of how you kind of get to know me. That's it. That's me.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. But it was fun, and that's where we met each other, and we kind of hit it off. One of the guys that was with him, and I don't want to mention any names without their permission, but he was eyeballing a steak that I was cooking. And I'm thinking, is this guy going to try to take my steak? You know, so that's why we carry 45 knives and stuff. I'm just kidding about that. But anyway, so, all right, so to get started, Bullet, why don't you give us the definition of overlanding?
It's overlanding. It's kind of a newer, the word, is kind of new, and it's spread, overlanding. And really, pioneers of the country, other countries, whatever, that's what they did. They went overland. They didn't go overseas, they went overland. Overlanding, to me, my personal definition of overlanding, is a more than 1 day trip. Like, not an overnight trip, right? I would say overlanding to a specific location, camping overnight in the woods, off the trail, on a 3 or 4 day adventure, because that's what it is. Overlanding, right. It's an adventure. It is. Different people overland different ways.
Right. Depending on the terrain.
Right. Well, there's terrain. You got backpackers. You got Jeeps. Your 4-wheel drive trucks, they overland.
Yes.
But for us, it's in a side-by-side.
Right. So based on the terrain that we overland in, we basically have to put everything that's going with us on a side-by-side. Now, I ride a 2019 Razor Polaris XP 1000, and Bullet, you have a...
It's a 2021 Trail.
The 900.
The 900, yeah.
Polaris Razor.
Yeah.
So for our rigs, the reason why we chose those rigs is because of the flexibility and the ability.
Well, you've got way more than I do.
Yeah, I do. But that's the reason why we chose these types of vehicles, because it's one thing to rock crawl and do technical stuff with an empty machine or just a cooler in the back. It's another thing to do that when you've got everything that you need to live for five or six days, maybe a week. So there's a learning curve there. Now, some of the limitations of these vehicles is you can't put much weight on them. They'll only go about, 200, 250 pounds, somewhere in that neighborhood. That's not, you would think that's plenty, but it's not. Once you cover everything that you need, your camping equipment, your food, your clothing, your shelter, tools, and just basic fuel. Fuel's a big one. Water. Water's heavy also. So all of that was a learning curve for me in the beginning, and I learned by my mistakes. I burned out a lot of wheel bearings, knuckles, you name it. And it was a hard lesson to learn, but once you learn it, especially after you spend thousands of dollars repairing that stuff. So basically, today's episode is coming from our experiences, and we're hoping that we can help out the new people. They're just getting started. I didn't really have anyone to ask in the beginning. I looked at Facebook sites and so on and so forth. Now, once I met Bullet and I met some of the other guys, and that's when I started getting hammered with, you've got too much weight, you've got too much weight, you got to reduce it, you got to reduce it. And I would, little by little by little, but I kept burning out bearings and breaking down and all that because I wasn't taking away enough. Well, I've learned my lesson since then, and you know that problem's been corrected. So what else do you have on that?
So, depending on where you're at in the country, overlanding, some of these guys, if you go seriously, if you go look on YouTube and type in overlanding with a side by side or something like that, and that goes back to the definition. Some people consider overlanding an overnight camping trip.
Yeah.
You know, to me, that's just a camping trip. We're going camping.
Yeah.
Some of the people in the Southwest, because of their terrain, they are afforded the ability to carry a trailer.
Yes.
And these machines, most of them will tow 2,000 pounds. Well, towing 2,000 pounds on what we would consider a dirt road, they're lucky, right? Overlanding in the Ozarks, there's every kind of terrain that there is. Mm-hmm. There is flat land. There are trails that are more dirt road-ish, a little bit rougher. There are rock crawls. There are swampy areas. There are muddy areas. There are natural mud holes. There are natural washouts on these trails.
Yeah.
So, you know, the ability and the capability of these machines is astounding. It really is. But you got to set them up right. You're not going to take a mud machine with portals and go take it out on the trail. You're just going to break down. Honest, that's the way it is. You need trail tires. So when you're setting up your machine for the trails, even if it's just to go trail riding and not overlanding, you know, your setup is important, and knowing your terrain, mm-hmm. where you're going to be riding, mm-hmm. you know, that it's just very important.
We're actually very fortunate to have this type of terrain.
Absolutely.
It forces you to become an experienced driver pretty quick. Pretty quick.
Yeah, because a small mistake equals big consequences.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Real quick.
As we know.
Yeah.
By first hand.
So, what else you got?
Well, you want to go in the navigation?
Sure. So, navigation is extremely important. The trails, there are a lot of programs that are out there. Onyx, Maprika, Avenza. There's a lot of trail off-roading apps that you can use. Personally, the two of us, and I'll take credit for it, mm-hmm. is turning you on to Gaia.
Well, most of the people we ride with
use Gaia.
Yeah.
So it's Gaia GPS, and their website is just ed.com. It is so powerful, right?
Yes,
but you've got to have some form, whether you use Gaia or whatever program that you use. Mm-hmm. You've got to have some kind of a GPS program, because you can get back in these mountains and you can get turned around and lost like that.
Well, the one thing I'll add to that is we don't have a phone signal. I mean, maybe
98% of the time you're not going to have a phone signal.
Not where we're at. And that's another thing about this navigation. When you do find a phone signal, you can mark it on the map and put a marker there for future reference.
Right.
Same thing with your camps. You can mark all that for future reference also.
So, but Gaia uses satellite, so you don't need, you don't need a sat or a phone signal or anything like that. It is one of the most powerful programs out there. And the reason I say program is because a lot of people think, or when they get it, they think it's an app. And really and truly, it's not an app. It's a computer program that is internet based. So it doesn't take away any computer space on your computer. The only thing that will take computer space is if you make your GPX file.
Right.
You know, that's the only thing, and it's very small. It's very, very small. But yeah, that's going to be.
Now to use Gaia GPS, you can either use it on your phone, which I have it on my phone, but it's very hard for me to see. So we use tablets.
Right.
I use an iPad tablet.
Yep.
And if you're going to use a tablet, get the cellular.
Yeah, you have to get the cellular
iPad
version.
or the Android tablet or whatever.
Yep.
Make sure it's the cellular
Yep.
one.
Yep. But navigation is so important. It's one of the most important things just for going out riding.
Right.
You know, you can track where you've been. You can track where you want to go. Gaia, you know, I hate to keep throwing out there. They ought to make us a sponsor for them and pay us for the promotion.
Yeah, maybe they will.
So, I've turned everybody that after I discovered Gaia, and everybody that I've turned onto it, you know, regardless of whatever computer program they were or app they were using, whether it was, and I'm not bashing Avenza or anything else. It's just, in my opinion, it's crap compared to Gaia GPS.
A lot of people use Maprika. I cannot understand Maprika.
Well, most of your overlanders, and when I say overlanders, I hate to refer to anybody else other than the side-by-side community that does it, but like 99.9% of your Jeeps, your Tacomas, whatever they're over in their 4x4 community, we'll say that, they all use Gaia. Mm-hmm. All of them. Mm-hmm. I haven't met a single one that doesn't because of the capabilities. You know, check it out for yourself. Really,
yeah, definitely.
It is an annual subscription, but and I tell so many people this, that was probably one of
essential.
Well, it was probably the best investment in my machine that I ever made was using Gaia.
Yeah. And there are a few components. I'm going to get back to the machines. There are a few components. Now, this is for the terrain that we ride, which is the steep, rocky type of terrain.
Ozark Mountains.
Ozark Mountains.
You never know what you're going to get.
That's right. There's a few things that you absolutely need. One of those things is a good navigation system, which is Gaia, is what we use. Another thing that's of the utmost importance is a good skid plate. Okay, he tore up his first skid plate. I tore up my first skid plate on my first machine. So we have gone to, you can get the 1/2-inch polyurethane skid plate. It goes from the nose all the way to the tail, and it's just cheap insurance. It really is.
Yeah, I would actually suggest the plastic over
the polyurethane.
Yeah, over the metal, just simply because metal doesn't metal bends. It doesn't give.
And it sounds like fingernails on.
Oh my God, yeah.
When you're going over
and the
rocks.
Plastic actually allows you to slide over the rocks because it's going to happen. I don't care who you are, what machine you're riding, unless you're in a mud machine that's you're riding 80-inch tractor tires, but at some point you're gonna slide on a rock somewhere.
Yes.
Yes. You're gonna touch a rock, right. But that plastic gives. It'll bend without leaving a crease or whatever else. Right. But
it doesn't dry out. It doesn't crack.
It just allows you to slide over the, and sometimes it's essential. That you have to put that skid plate on that rock to slide it down.
Right. But you're okay with it.
Right.
You don't cringe. Oh my gosh, am I going to rip out the front end? Am I going to rip out the, whatever case may be? So, yeah, that is essential. The other thing is some type of communications. Now, we all run GMRS radios. Most of your overlanding community and even your four-wheel drive people that just maybe go out for a day, they all run GMRS radios. A lot of hunters run GMRS radios. And if something were to happen and you didn't have a phone signal, that could be a way to call for help. However,
Channel 16.
Channel 16, that's the help channel.
That is the official national off-road
4x4 channel.
Right.
Because 4 times 4 is 16.
Right.
Right, I read that.
Yeah.
He's right. So, but that's not a guarantee that you're going to get help. At this time, I'd like to introduce a spot device. Okay, so a spot device is made by Spot. I'll post a link and a picture of it. But it's very, very handy, and it works by satellite. Now, and I've used it a couple different times to be rescued. You can send text messages back and forth to any phone, anywhere in the world, as a matter of fact. You can send your coordinates and a detailed map of exactly where you're at. Now, if things get too hairy, and you've been in a bad accident or something like that, it's got an SOS button, and you just flip up the cover and you hit that SOS button, and everybody in the area, volunteer firemen, sheriff's deputies, forest rangers, game wardens, search and rescue, whoever's in the area is going to come to your rescue. So that's a valuable piece of equipment, and I do not leave the house to go out on a trail or go camping or hunting or anything like that without a spot device. So, so that's it, and we'll wait for Bullet to get back, and we'll talk about something else. So now we're going to talk about places to ride. I'm going to let Bullet cover that, and along with some other stuff that goes along with the places we ride. So go ahead, Bullet.
So Ozark is full. I mean, the Ozark Mountains are full of riding, places to ride. I'm not necessarily going to list them in the order as in like my favorites or least favorites. But the preface to that is we kind of enjoy the challenge.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, Wolf Pen, which is it's Wolf Pen Gap, which is up in northeast Arkansas, up near Mena, or in Mena. I guess it'd be part of Mena. It's a manicured trail system, so it's great for beginners, it's great for families, it's great for young kids, right? Where we're at, we are lucky enough to live very close to Brock Creek. Brock Creek is so many different kinds of terrain.
Brock Creek, if you're not familiar with the Ozarks, is in the lower left-hand bottom of the Ozark map.
Right. Find Jerusalem, Arkansas.
Right.
And I hate to plug in Gaia again, but if you look at Gaia, you'll find it.
Yes.
It has every trail that has ever existed in Arkansas.
Yes.
Now some of them are closed. That's also one of the things that Gaia will do. It will tell you which trails are closed, which ones are open, yada yada. But so Brock Creek is a great place it's also a great place for beginners.
Yes, it is.
That's where I started.
Yes.
When I first started just riding ATVs. At the time I lived outside of Little Rock, so I had to travel. There's mud parks here, but that's not what I was, it's never what I was interested in. It was always the trails. But somebody told me about Brock Creek, so I looked it up, came out, I rode it. Now, for the beginner, it might seem slightly advanced, even, right? For the beginner, and by no means are the trails boring. There's Upper Brock Creek, Lower Brock Creek, and there are so many things to see. There's like 6 of the most beautiful waterfalls in the state. Some of them do require, you know, a little bit of hiking, not like miles and miles or anything like that. So there's Brock Creek. There's Max Pines.
There's Max Pines.
Go ahead, what were you going to say about Brock?
Oh, I was going to say, well, pretty much everywhere in the Ozarks, but there are so many beautiful remote campsites.
Oh yeah.
That most people don't even get to see unless you're in a side by side, not even in Jeeps because they can't fit down the trails. But just beautiful scenery.
Family cemeteries.
Family cemeteries that go way back to
before the Civil War.
Before the Civil War.
And post Civil War.
Right.
There's family cemeteries. There are some that are Lee's grave.
Yes.
That is just a single solitary gravesite.
Yes.
That you have to ride past.
Yeah. You want to tell them the story on Arley's grave?
Yeah, it's kind of a ghost story as well. Not that I've experienced it, but it's kind of a ghost story as well. So the story goes, the Little Red River.
This was after the Civil War, when people started homesteading out here?
This was in 1903.
Oh, 1903. Okay,
yep.
So it was after that.
Yep.
Okay.
1903 or 1904.
Okay.
Might have been 1904.
Okay.
So just after the turn of the century.
Yeah.
So most people are still in covered wagons.
That's right.
Right? So the section is at a crossing that we call Slick Rock.
Yes.
And it is on the Little Red River. And it's called Slick Rock because all the rocks underneath the water are flat, you know, and it can get pretty slick.
They're slimy, yeah.
Right. So the story goes that there was a family, and they were traveling by covered wagon, coming through the Ozarks on the same trails that we're on.
Yes.
And when they were coming across, the water was deeper than they expected, and running faster than they expected or thought. And they started crossing, and the wagon overturned, and Arley, who was an infant, drowned.
Swept away, yeah.
And right. They got to the other side, and they buried Arley because that's not where they were going.
Right.
And like so many families, during that time, somebody dies of sickness and, whatever ailment it may be or whatever happened, they just get buried along the trail.
Right.
That they took. You got to keep going. And so they buried Arley, and Arley was about a month old.
Yeah.
He was born in September and died in October.
Yeah.
And his gravesite is right there with the headstone. Now the headstone is not the original headstone, but as the story goes, there is a small campsite on the same side of the Little Red River, just what 50 yards, 100 yards?
Not even that. You throw a rock.
Yeah,
and hit it
to the gravesite. Yeah. And the story goes that if you go down there and camp overnight, that you can hear Arley's mother crying at the river. I haven't experienced it,
right.
But maybe we'll go out there one night and do it.
Yeah, yeah.
There's some weird things happen out here in the Ozarks.
Yeah, and that's another great thing about overlanding out here is that you get to see things that most people don't get to see. And there's all these legends, and it's adventure.
It is
straight up adventure.
Straight up. Yeah. So yeah, Brock Creek, and then you have a place called Max Pines. That's actually owned by a guy named Greg. Mm-hmm. Hi, Greg. Little shout out. Brother, love the pancakes.
We'll post a link to your.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Greatest pancakes on a Saturday morning you're ever gonna get.
Yeah.
So Greg has cabins and all that kind of stuff out there, little general store.
Yeah,
campsites,
RV
sites, yeah. And so Max Pines, which would consider you'd have Forsh Mountain, and
White Oak,
White Oak, and Moxon Gap, right?
Yeah.
So and Indian Creek, and that's all central around what we call Max Pines.
It's actually the Piney Ranger District.
Right. It's It's the Big Piney Ranger
Big
District.
Piney Ranger
right.
District. Right.
So the Big Piney Ranger District actually goes from Brock Creek all the way up to Harrison.
Yes.
And it's huge. So it's huge. Which Max Pines, it's great riding out there. There's also a lot of things to see out there. Some challenging trails, some beginner trails, but I would generally consider that an intermediate to advanced riding, depending on the trail that you get on.
Yeah. Now, some of these trails that we're talking about, especially if you're new and you're beginning, don't go by yourself.
Absolutely not. And even advanced, depending on where you're going.
Right.
Some of those places, you might not want to go alone.
Yeah, because we were discussing this last night. If we get hung up on a hill climb and we're stair stepping, and it looks like the machine's gonna, roll over backwards, all you have to do is stop and hook your winch up to keep your front end down to winch you over what you need to do. The problem is, if you're sitting in your machine holding that brake,
right,
you don't have anyone to hook up your winch. So in cases like that, I would strongly suggest you go with someone else.
Right.
Another machine.
Right. And then so you've got Mill Creek, which is Mulberry Mountain. So Mulberry Mountain and Mill Creek are all along in the same area, really. It's up by the Pig Trail. It's very famous for Windy Road. Yeah, the Pig Trail. I ride it on a bike, on a motorcycle, so But up there, and give another shout out, Silas at Mill Creek Outfitters. Little cabins up there. Great little place, and the Combs store. Awesome food.
Yes.
So now that one at Mill Creek. So Mulberry Mountain also has their campground.
Yes.
It stays very busy.
It's a very nice campground.
Very nice campground.
Different kinds of cabins. They've got RV sites. They've got a tremendous, really nice bathhouse and restrooms, which is important when you're on the trail.
Right. Well, if you're staying at a campsite.
Or you're staying at a campsite.
Brock Creek does not have any of that. There is the official Upper Brock Creek campground, which you can look up and it'll give you GPS coordinates and whatnot. The only thing they have there is a bathroom. It's usually not busy. Not a whole lot of people come to Brock Creek because of that. Because I hate to say it, but most people are glamping, not camping.
Right.
They're riding and I'm not taking anything away from the people that do stay in hotels, but Max Pines, you've got you can stay in Russellville.
Yeah. Dover.
Yeah, you can stay. There's cabins to rent in Dover. So there's that, and then there's Buckhorn, which affectionately everybody around here calls it Rockhorn, because it is rocky, and that is closest to Fayetteville.
Fayetteville, right.
So a lot of people stay in Fayetteville and go riding there. Now, what's really interesting is this. So you can actually ride from Brock Creek.
Yeah.
Now, we use Gaia. Sorry, all you other app users that don't. You can actually go and map it from Brock Creek all the way out to Buckhorn. The only limitation that you're going to have is getting gas.
Right.
That's going to be your hardest. Your biggest limitation is how far you can go on a tank of fuel.
Right, and that's the other thing when you're planning these routes. You've got to plan them, which is just common sense, but you've got to know where to get fuel, ice during the summertime.
If you're going to carry a cooler.
If you're going to carry a cooler, you don't have to carry a cooler. Water, supplies. Now up there at Pelsar, Sand Gap,
Mm-hmm.
they don't have fuel there, but they've got a store, they've got a deli in there, and what they've done is just for the overlanders, and we're talking hikers and the
Right.
the whole realm of overlanding, they built shower houses there and a laundromat for people to wash their clothes
Oh,
when they're on the trail.
Right.
Yeah.
That's nice.
So that's a good spot. So, and we've got all these places mapped up. We've got Hagerville
Right.
Country Store. It's got fuel, gas, ice, hunting supplies if you need that, camping supplies. You've got, we haven't gone north yet as far as who'd have thought it and up to Pelsor
Right.
or anything like that. But, and then, like you said, Max Pines has got it, Jerusalem Store has got it, Cleveland Store has got it, Scottville, or Scotland Store has got it. And you've been, Orc.
Oh yeah, you got
Orc, Combs, we mentioned that,
Mm-hmm.
St. Paul.
Yep.
And you've been more places over in that area than I have. Red Lick, is that another one that we stopped at one time? I think me and Paul.
Yeah, maybe you and Paul.
I think me and Paul did. Yeah, stopped at Red Lick. So that's a vital part. You know, how far can your machine go? How much extra fuel do you need? How much food do you have to have with you to get to your next stop? Not only get to your next stop, but what if you can't make your next stop? What if you got to hold up for a day or two? All these things are taken into consideration, which we'll go into more detail. And once we actually get on the trail
Right.
and start doing this, that'll be a few episodes down the road here. But once we get on the trail and start doing this, you'll have a better idea.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's not like we haven't done it before. It just wasn't caught on camera.
Right. Not all of it.
Right, not all of it. Some of it has, yeah.
Yeah.
So, anyway, yeah.
Okay. Let's talk about, before we go, let's talk about, we talked about getting to these places that have fuel, ice, gas, all your supplies. Some of these places you can get to by dirt road. A dirt road will end there. But some of them you have to get on the highway. So we're going to talk about the regulations in our state, what would you call it, the highway traffic code?
Well,
For
it's just basically the laws that govern side-by-sides.
Side-by-sides being on the highway.
Right.
You want to cover that?
Sure. It's really simple. So in Arkansas, you cannot license and or register a vehicle for highway use. So what we are allowed to do is you can get on a state highway, not an interstate. Know the difference. As long as the speed limit is 55 or below,
Right.
and you can use it to go from trailhead to trailhead within reason.
And we figured out that reason is no more than 10 miles.
Right. And it's going to, whatever our definition of within reason is, may not be your local authority's definition of within reason.
Right.
However, if you are going from trailhead to trailhead and you exited one trailhead and your next trailhead is 3 miles down the road,
Yeah.
and you get pulled over, they may say, well, and I'm not a lawyer, and I'm not giving legal advice. They may say, well, that's not my definition. In my opinion, let them give me a ticket, because I'm going to court. Here it is. It says within reason. So that was the shortest distance from point A to point B, and the only way to get there.
Now, you're also allowed to get on the highway to go get supplies, fuel.
Right.
You can go get fuel. You can go get
But the law still applies within reason.
Right.
So I don't think, I mean, I've never been on going from trailhead to trailhead. I can honestly say the longest stretch of pavement that I have been on is going to the OR Cafe, which is the oldest mercantile in the state of Arkansas. I believe 1890.
Yes.
And you get there by way of 213, 215.
I'd have to look on.
Yeah, it's 213, 215
Yeah.
is the name of the highway. But when you exit, there's a dirt road that you're on. I think it's 5550. You're on that dirt road and it dead ends right there, and you make a left-hand turn. I know nobody knows what I'm talking about, but I'm saying it anyway. You're on the pavement for 2.3 miles. That is legitimately the longest stretch of paved road that I have ever ridden.
Yeah.
You know, is 2.3 miles to go from one trailhead to another because.
Well, I can't say the same because Paul and I, we rode from Mulberry Mountain Lodging and Events to Combs on the highway. The whole thing was highway.
You were on the pig trail.
Yes. Yes. Well, you had to make a left there off the pig trail.
Right. Yeah.
That's 215, isn't it? Or 213? When you go to Combs, off from Ork, you come down 23, then you make a left there to
That's
go
16.
to Combs. That's 16.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's 16. Yeah, to go to Combs is 16.
Yeah, yeah. And I'll say, as far as law enforcement, I have passed law enforcement coming at me the other way, and they just wave at me.
You. Yeah.
And then I've had law enforcement officers see me at the store getting gas and want to know where I'm going and where I came from, and they checked to see if I had a driver's license and all that, and I checked out good, and they kind of gave me shook my finger at me, you're not supposed to be riding these on the road, yada yada yada, and then after that they'll say, okay, I'm taking off. You take off after I take off, and they let you go.
Yeah, and there's nothing, like I said, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not giving legal advice, but there's really nothing they can do, honestly. I mean, they can, now in part of the country where you may live,
that might be a big no-no.
You can, they have towns, Colorado, the towns are open to UTVs, side-by-sides. Montana is the same way.
Right.
It just depends on the state.
Right.
So, anyway.
Do you have anything else that you can think of?
No.
Okay.
No, we're good.
I think that's it, and we're going to get ready for the next episode, which will cover. What are we covering in the next episode?
We're going to cover what you need to carry for your machine as far as the equipment, tools, basic tools, stuff like that. We're going to talk about a bag, like a day bag, what you might want to put in it, riding alone versus riding with somebody else, right? The differences in what you may or may not carry. And that's really about it. I think that's all.
Yeah, I think we'll just go over our equipment and bags and all that stuff. And then for the third episode, we'll be getting deeper and deeper.
Yeah, we're gonna build into from the basics, what you need to know, into the specifics of what we carry, which may give you ideas to carry, the same items or the like, trial and error per person.
Right, and hopefully the new person learning how to do this, like I said in the beginning, I carried everything. I mean, everything that I could possibly think of, just like I would in my Jeep if I was going out camping or overlanding in that for a week. Well, you can't do that with these machines, as we talked about earlier with weight. But we'll go more into that in following episodes.
Yeah.
So, okay. So
bye.
Anyway, thanks for watching. We appreciate it, and we hope you'll return for the next episode. All right.
Bye.
We're out.
All right, that's it. So you can leave it rolling.